Welcome to Hard Beautiful Journey, where we embrace vulnerability as our superpower and let courage light our path. I'm Tiff Carson, here to share heartfelt stories of healing, grief, and resilience. Each week, I'll talk with guests from experts to everyday heroes about their journeys through adversity. Together, we'll uncover the beauty that emerges from life's challenges and how each experience can spark profound growth. Join us on this courageous journey of connection and transformation. Have you ever had the sense that talk therapy just scratched the surface, but the real healing you needed lived somewhere deeper? Maybe you've read the books, tried the affirmations, pushed yourself to be better, but underneath it all, there's still a lingering ache, a grief, a restlessness, a disconnection from something inside you that feels like home. Today's guest, Donnie Summers, knows that ache. He lived it, and what pulled him from the edge wasn't more performance, it was a return to presence. His story begins with a sacred mentorship on Indigenous land and leads into a life devoted to soul-level healing. So before we dive in, let me ask you, what are you holding that your body has been trying to release for years? And are you ready to finally listen? Welcome to the podcast, Donnie. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me today, Tiff.
I know that I just shared a bit about your background, but I'd love for you to introduce yourself in your own words. And when people ask you what you do, what's the truest way that you'd like to answer that?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Actually, the way you introduced the episode was wonderful because it really strikes to the heart of what all of us are on the hero's journey, right?
Mm.
And my journey started pretty rough. I had a lot of childhood trauma. I felt really stuck in my life. I had a lot of anger, a lot of disconnection from myself and from the world and the people around me. And I was dealing with severe mental illness, depression, anxiety, anger, and I didn't really know what was going to help me. And I did start the Indigenous way,
Mm.
and I tried an experimental ceremony called Cambo that comes from a frog, not the psychedelic one, but definitely a lot more intense experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that turned my life around. It started a spiritual path and a way I started questioning my reality about everything. And that led to a lot of deep inner work, a lot of tears, a lot of teeth gritting, a lot of very difficult moments that has reshaped who I am. That started like 14 years ago. And now the work that I do, which I actually wasn't even looking for, I wasn't looking to work with clients or doing the work that I do now, but in my own self healing, I ended up getting interested in different topics and modalities and therapies because I was very open minded. After having Cambo, I started being open to there were different ways than just traditional medications and psychiatrists and all these different ways to find myself. So I would find a modality that I enjoyed that was actually helping me. And instead of wanting to be, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Instead of being at the whims of when a therapist would be available who did that modality or practitioner, I would want to learn it myself so that I could actually use these things on my own time. And so that led to, gosh, I don't even know how many modalities I've been certified in 12, 14 different modalities that have led me to all of the work that I do now, working with the subconscious mind, working with emotional intelligence, emotional regulation, empowerment work with people, helping people learn to be more authentic and honest with themselves and stop people pleasing and really be who they are. Put down all the lists of things that they feel that they need to do and actually be honest about where they're really at and where they want to move. And so I help people figure that out. And I'm highly intuitive and empathic to what people are going through. And often when they meet me, I can kind of just tell from their energy and things, their subtle cues in their expressions and their body language and their energy field and kind of what's going on. And I just jump right in and help people figure out how to express themselves with words they're not even really sure how to use yet, emotions they're not really sure how to label,
Mhm.
and ask the right questions so that they can shift those and move subconscious patterns.
Mhm. So let's go back to the beginning of your healing journey over the last few years. What was that thing that was breaking down in your life? And what cracked you open to wanting to study these modalities and learn them yourself? What was that tipping point for you?
Well, honestly, when I first started, something I didn't mention was I had a lot of suicidal ideation and I didn't want to live anymore. And at one point I had tried to take my life and a neighbor found me and was doing CPR until paramedics got there and helped fully resuscitate me. And I was planning it again. And then I had a very close friend of mine who always a happy guy, always smiling, always had a positive attitude. And when I was in a depressive streak, he tried calling me one day and I didn't answer the phone. And he called me several more times over the next week and I didn't answer the phone. I was just very distant from the world, didn't want to talk to anybody. And it wasn't like him to call so often.
Mhm.
And so after I kind of started rising up out of that streak a little bit, I called my friend and there was no answer. And typically my friend would almost always call me back within 5 minutes. Like he was just always by his phone. Didn't hear from him and thought that was strange. And then tried him a few days later, same thing. And then I tried him the next week a few more times and nothing. I thought that was, again, just really different from his character.
Mhm.
And after about 2 weeks went by, I tried to call his phone again and his phone was disconnected. So I called his wife and just said, hey, I can't reach Luke. I don't know what's going on. His phone's disconnected and couldn't reach him. And she said he took his life. And that shocked me
Mhm.
because he was such a happy guy. And I said, I don't understand. He was such a happy guy. And she goes, no, that's just what he showed the world. He was really depressed. He was always thinking about suicide. And that really affected me a lot because I thought to myself, wow, he reached out to me a lot. And it was the week that he had reached out several times was the week that he took his life because he had taken his life a few weeks earlier. On that week, he was calling me, and I thought, oh my God, what if he was calling me because he needed support, because he needed someone to talk to, which I'm guessing most likely was why he called so many times because it wasn't like him to do that.
Mhm.
And that that moment was the moment that made me want to get help because I got to see what it looked like for a family to lose somebody to suicide. And it is absolutely not pleasant at all. It's not all of the stories that I told myself, my family will be better off, my loved ones will be better off because I'm no good, I'm not worthy, XYZ, all the stories. I got to see how much deep, real pain it caused people. And I did not want to be that person who caused my loved ones pain like that. So that's when I reached out. That's when I had Cambo. And that's when I started my path and decided that I never wanted to be in a position where someone needed me in a deep, meaningful way, and I couldn't be there to support them. And then it just turned into I was doing this work,
Mm.
for friends. It started with friends, and somebody would have a rough day, and I always made sure I was there for my family and friends,
Mm.
and that led to people saying, "Man, you should really do this. You should really do this for your work. You're really good at it."
Mhm.
So
First of all, I'm very sorry for the loss of your friend, and oh, that just made me tear up. So you describe your mentorship with and I'm gonna say this wrong probably, Yavapai Tribe?
the Yavapai Tribe, yeah,
Yavapai
perfect.
Tribe, as sacred and transformational. I am so curious, what happened during that experience that shifted everything for you and how you see healing, especially compared to the traditional talk therapy?
Well, again, this route is a lot different because when I met an elder named Raymond who luckily took me under his wing for the next 2 years. And I felt like a little kid asking 1,000 questions every time I saw him. And he answered every single question and showed me a lot about the ways and the elements and their ceremonies and how they see their connection with the earth and with everything around them. And that gave me a different perspective about life. and the different ceremonies and rituals that they have, everything from, peyote to other what they consider medicines that they use that can create altered states and different things like that that really take us to a much deeper space. Were really the things that were pivotal and in changing the way I think, the way I respond, the way I see myself, the way I see life, the universe, people, everything. It changed absolutely everything. It was like a curtain being pulled back and getting a hard slap in the face of what reality is. And that changes a person. It's like the Matrix taking the red pill. And then once you see behind the curtain, you can't close it again and forget. And so the only way forward is into the fire that forges you into a new person. And I'm sure you get this, but there are days where it's really hard. It's really hard. And I've been doing this for so many years and I have a lot of resilience and a lot of strength. And yet I still wake up many days and just cry because there's emotion there that needs to move. There's energy that needs to come out. And, you know, as much as I help people, I heard this story once and it feels really true for people doing work for supporting other people is that if you imagine yourself like a tree and you're dropping all of this fruit for people, and the fruit isn't for the tree, it's for everybody who walks by the tree. So there's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of insights, there's a lot of ways I see life that are deeply meaningful and helpful for others. And yet I still don't know how to help myself as well as I know how to help others. I don't know
Yeah.
how to offer myself that same compassion when someone tells me their story and I can see all of these behaviors that are stacking up where I go, "Oh, that makes so much sense. I see why they run this behavior, why they have this mindset, why they're struggling with overcoming this," and have compassion and yet still see where I struggle to have that compassion for my own self. And it
Mm.
doesn't mean I don't, but it's not nearly the same as I have for other people. So it's not always an easy path. Like I said, I still wake up and I struggle, but yet I still have now 1,000 tools and ways of thinking and resiliency that I didn't have 14 years ago when all this started for me. That has allows me to be able to show up in a different way in the world where I can still have pain. I can still have something releasing or coming forward for me and crying and recognize this isn't pleasant. I'm not enjoying this, but also knowing at the same time, like, I'm okay. I'm going to cry. And when I'm done, I'm going to get back up. I'm going to go make my bed. I'm going to make my lunch and I'm going to see my next client. And do you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
there are still things that change.
I know what you mean. And I've actually said it quite often is there's so many days where I say to my guides and can I have 5 days off, please? Can I have 5 solid days off of just nothing? Just experiencing life without any of the hard or the sadness or like just 5. That's all I'm asking, and then we'll go again. Let's do this. And I don't get that. I don't know
And I was
about
about to
you.
say, have you ever gotten to 5 days?
Nope. I think I've gotten a stretch of 2. And
Oh
I
my
was
God,
just like,
that's good.
all right, cool, cool." But no, I get it, like, it's happening for me too, but like you said, I'm using the tools and the modalities and the things that I've learned to come back to myself faster and
I
and
celebrate
more
that for
whole.
you.
Mhm.
I celebrate that for you. I know how that feels where you get up and if I don't know where these things come from sometimes because you can go to bed. For example, I can notice I go to bed and I'm like, I'm feeling good. Good day. Thankful for this, thankful for that. And I can wake up and it can be like bombs have gone off in your body. And I'm like, what happened between sleeping and waking that started a fire? Like you know what I mean?
I
And
have
then
a
there are the
theory. I have a theory, and it's because I'm very spiritual. I believe we have astral traveled during that time, and we have experienced some real stuff during
yeah,
that time that it's like, "Oh, alright, that's why I have a migraine. Cool." So, now I'm gonna try and fix that. So, I don't know, that's my theory is we're busy in the sleeping part
yeah.
doing some other deep healing.
I can definitely see that. And, there are those days too where you wake up and you're almost checking for the bullet holes and you're like, "There's there's nothing here. I just gotta," I call them dolphin days. Like, me and some friends, our group of friends had this thing where we talked about how dolphins are just playful and joy and they're jumping in and out of the water. So we made this joke that if you ever wake up and you don't find the bullet holes in the wounds and you're just like, "Hey, this just feels good. I don't know why, but I accept this right now." It just feels good today in my body. I don't feel like there's something I have to sit with or cry about or talk about with somebody or journal about. Like,
Yeah.
it's a dolphin day. I just get to play and have fun and jump out of the water and be like, like a dolphin. I just get to have fun, and that's great. I will take my dolphin days when I get them and not complain. And I don't meditate those days. I don't look for anything. I just completely enjoy the pleasantness of that moment without feeling like I have to do a practice or internalize anything.
I am calling that dolphin day for me now too, because yeah,
Okay.
if I don't have to do the hard work every single day, I am just gonna
100%.
enjoy my dolphin days. So
100%.
I am so intrigued with the modalities that you work with because I am in the process right now of getting breath work and somatic coaching certifications, and I absolutely love the parts work and the subconscious repatterning. I've also done training in that area too. So, was there one method for you that was especially pivotal for you in the early stages of your own healing? And if so, what did it help you realize or release?
Well, I'll tell you the real first modality that actually carried me for a long time until I started bringing a lot of other modalities into my life, and that was emotional freedom techniques, the tapping, EFT.
Mhm.
I brought that in because it was so simple. All I had to do was tap and be like, "This sucks. I hate this. What do I do? I don't know." That's it. You just
Mm.
go at it. And that helped a
I
lot.
hate
Really,
tapping.
truly.
I don't wanna tap right now.
I've tapped about this 500 times. This is supposed to shift. Why isn't it? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah. That was a pivotal one for me because it I struggled with just sitting. I struggled with just feeling. To sit and be like, "Oh, here's a sensation. It's the size of a grapefruit. It's vibratory. It feels warm. It's uncomfortable. It's in this part of my body. Breathe in that." Yeah, I struggled with that. I didn't know really how to sit with myself. So this felt like movement, like almost like I don't know if this is the right word, but almost like an escape to some degree because I'm still doing the work, but I'm not having to just sit here and feel it
Mhm,
you know,
mhm,
at least how that started, right? Until I started integrate somatics into EFT and hypnotic language into EFT as I started learning subconscious, working with the subconscious mind.
mhm,
It was that was a savior for me in a lot of ways.
mhm. So many of us carry shame about our story and who we've been. I know I did with we had my ex-husband and I had a very difficult infertility battle and parenting battle, and I held a lot of shame around not being able to have children naturally the way that most people do, I guess, and that was just one of the shameful things in my story, and by starting to talk about it, and I started it with and that's why this podcast came to be, was sharing that journey, and it released a lot for me. But what's one story that you used to tell yourself that you've now rewritten, and what helped you do that?
You know, God, there's 100,000 of those I could share probably, and the one of the most powerful was in the very beginning of my path that I didn't even recognize that I could challenge a thought. That's really true. I didn't realize if something came through that just said, "Oh, you're an idiot. You do everything wrong. Nobody loved you. This person's gonna hurt you," that I just believed it, and I didn't realize that I could challenge that at all, and really sit with the discomfort of that to let my nervous system regulate. And that, to be honest with you, was one of the most powerful things for me is when I realized I could make a difference in how I thought and what I decided to believe. And once once that came online, that was the beginning of something really great for me. That's just one. That's the very first one I remember.
What's another one? Do you have any others? Because
I
we
mean,
have
to
so
be
many
honest,
stories, right? We all have so many stories that we tell ourselves.
that has deepened. That has deepened in a way when I could say others, that's just sort of the beginning, right? Like when I told you I realized I didn't have to believe that thought, that doesn't mean that I didn't still believe many thoughts. That was the beginning of peeling back just one layer to that one thing. And that still today goes absolutely so deep. And I can give you an example the other day. And it was an odd moment for me because sometimes when little things happen in our life, we don't realize, well, how do I put this? When we get used to a routine in how we're doing things, right? So, for example, my wife, we almost always go to her mother's house together or go to dinner with her family together, things like that.
Mhm.
And the other day, I actually just didn't feel like going. And that's new for me. That's not something I do. So I said I don't want to go. And they went out to a nice lunch for Father's Day. And she looked so beautiful. She was really dressed up nice and just looked amazing. And when she left, all this insecurity came over me all of a sudden. She's so beautiful. What if all these men are staring at her when she's out? What if she smiles at one when they're out? What if one talks to her and she thinks, "Oh, I'll talk to him?" And just crazy thoughts going through my head, even though my wife has never given me any sign that I should mistrust her.
Mm.
And here was this discomfort that came up and a mind that was just running crazy. And I knew I just needed to cry. And so I cried about that. And I literally had to just go back and look through all of the wonderful messages that she sent me, especially recently because we just got recently married.
Mhm.
I had to look through all of our messages to remind myself that what I was making up was illusion in my mind as
Mhm.
I cried. And I sat probably an hour with all of that. I'm just looking at messages, crying, thinking about what is actual reality
Mhm.
and how what I want to tell myself now.
Mhm.
And it sounds simple what I'm saying, but it really isn't because I was really in a fire. And I know you get this because of the work you've done where you could tell yourself this isn't true. And something I used to tell a friend of mine was my friend or I might say something to each other like that's just a thought, right? And we would say to each other, yeah, but tell that to my body because the body's the unconscious mind, right? And
Mhm.
so your mind goes, this is crazy what I'm thinking. This is not reality, but your body feels like nukes are going off in it. And you're saying, wait, this isn't logic. This isn't real. But your body's saying, yep, I don't care what you're saying in your mind right now. This is real. And to dig underneath that more takes so much bravery and effort and frustration and like every emotion you can imagine to get under this layer until finally there like something softens and just says, okay, okay, I'm safe again. Then the nervous system calms and resets and you start like yawning or, like
Yeah.
however your nervous system resets for you. And then you start getting these resets and then you go, okay, I'm sane again.
Yeah. And what's
So
the flip side of that, right? Is when you have those feelings or those insecurities or those beliefs that you're not good enough or she's going to talk to somebody else. Like the flip side of not doing that work and sitting with that pain and that discomfort and crying and looking through the messages, it's jealousy and it could lead to things that you don't want to happen in your marriage, right? So,
mhm.
like, you sharing what you did in that moment is so beautiful for somebody else to hear how they can approach something else in a different way. So,
Yeah, I mean, whole dynamics get flipped on this. if you don't mind me like kind of jumping into that for a
Oh,
moment.
yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
So I've watched in my life, this is the first relationship I have, and even a healthy relationship is challenging, but this is the first healthy relationship that I've had in my life. And I've now got to understand more and more how much something like that might turn into, depending on how forward of a person you are when you start thinking, what if she's talking to somebody? Or she probably is. Then every time they start to pick up their phone, you start to wonder who they're talking to. And then for me, I'll tell you how I've worked in the past when I'm not checking myself really hard is then I start becoming a detective where I might start saying, "Oh, who was that?" The just message where I'm insecure. And really, instead of then being aware to say, I notice I'm feeling insecure right now. Can I have some comfort? Because I'm scared of losing you. Then the vulnerability isn't there to just say that to my wife and her go, "Oh, baby, what do you need? What tell me exactly what you need to hear. How can I support you?" And then that turns into dynamics where potentially even masculine and feminine roles get switched, right?
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, like what happens, this is what I've seen personally over the years is what happens when a man is in his healthy masculine and a woman is in her healthy feminine, is you have this beautiful balance. A woman can feel soft and trusting and be able to listen to her intuition and heart. And, a man can lead in a healthy way and a woman can lead in her own ways as well. And when that switches, the whole dynamic changes. And then you start having relationship issues where when a woman doesn't feel safe, then she starts jumping into a more masculine role.
Mhm.
And it's often not a healthy masculine role. And then the man jumps into a unhealthy feminine role. And then the relationship starts tumbling and power dynamics start to happen. And then your whole relationship starts to go down the tubes, all because of something that started as a thought. What if my wife looks so pretty, all these men are looking at her, and what if one of them says something to her and she decides not to choose me and choose somebody else instead of recognizing, wow, I have not felt chosen in my life many times. And I'm scared that's going to happen again with the person that I love the most.
Mhm.
And instead of jumping into now all these new behaviors that we actually have to really sit with our feelings and sit with our thoughts and not change them for a moment and just let them run. Let the tears come, let the discomfort in the body be there, and then actually decide to say, okay, this program's running now. How can I look at this to prove it's wrong? And that's almost like cognitive behavioral therapy stuff right there. So like myself, I looked at all the messages from my wife and put all those together. In my WhatsApp, I did a message to myself of all these beautiful messages she sent me. And I'm like, this woman loves me. She's not going to do this. And if she does, if the worst case scenario happened and she did, I'm strong enough to get through this.
Mhm.
Even if she did the worst case scenario and I had to move on and I got a divorce, like I'll be okay. Even though it will really suck, I'll be okay.
Mhm.
Like I have to run these situations in my mind, you know,
Mhm.
and figure out what part's driving the bus and figure out what that part needs.
So let's talk about parts.
Yeah, let's do
I
it.
would love for you to explain what parts work means to you and how you help people with that modality.
Okay. Well, I like to call what's going on in our head as the committee who's always meeting. And we have all these different parts. And to be honest with you, I have a theory on what parts are. And it's especially as far as studies are going now that are talking about how our ancestors passed down everything from trauma to emotions to all kinds of stuff into to us that codes us so that we can survive the next life that they feel are dangerous. That gets coded into us. And so we're the flag holders for our ancestors to heal the things they didn't too. And so parts work, sometimes I actually wonder if what we're feeling, the voices we hear in our head or the thoughts we have are actually echoes from our ancestors, really.
Mhm.
And that those parts are active and alive in us. So we have all these different categories of parts. We have judges, critics, distractors, rationalizers, we have exiles, we have all these different parts that have different emotions and they all have a job that they're doing that we assigned these parts long ago when we were really young and didn't know how to create healthy boundaries within ourselves with our outer world because we didn't have that power.
Mhm.
And so now these parts run the show. So if Sally got rejected when she was, reading her essay or her science project in front of the class and they laughed at her when she was 7 years old, well then now she created a protective part of some kind, a distractor part or a critical part that says, I can't get in front of people anymore. And so as she's older in a job that now her boss says as a grown adult, hey, the committee's coming in and I need you to give a presentation on the stocks that we're doing right now. Well, then Sally feels freaked out about that. Sally goes home, knows she needs to do the presentation, but then a distractor part comes up that says, hey, you got to clean the house right now. It's really dirty. And then Sally cleans the house. And then she goes, I really need to get to this presentation I'm going to do. And another part says, oh, but first you really have to go pay that bill. It's overdue. It's good. You know what I mean? Then a distractor part comes in as also a critical part at the same time is going, this is what you always do. You never do what you're supposed to do. And now your presentation is not going to get done. And if you do that, now your house is going to be dirty. You never clean your house. All these parts are always talking to us. And so the best way to help these parts is to start getting to know our parts personally, not by trying to fix them or make them be different because they're always going to be on the bus with us. It's just seeing which one is in the driver's seat right now and being able to come and talk to this part in very specific ways to say, look, you're on the bus with me and that's fine. You're welcome here. You're a part of me. However, I'm driving the bus. Right. That adult self, that higher self is driving the bus. And you can sit behind me and you can still talk and I'll listen. And so working with parts is very specific because we have to filter out other parts and find out what part is actually the most active right now in our lives. Because we all find an emotional home. That's what every one of us does. And the best explanation of the way I heard this was with Tony Robbins. I love him so much. And he talked about during 9/11, he was actually doing one of his events with hundreds or thousands of people. And he got to see that everybody has an emotional home. So, for example, when 9/11 happened, he saw some people that were terrified, some people that were neutral, some people that were angry, and every single person has an emotional home. So learning our emotional home is extremely important to see not just that we have parts, but what home does that part put us in? Does it put us in as the victim, the righteous one, the angry one, the isolated one, and starting to learn about ourselves. And a lot of that too comes from values. I'm kind of adding in several things here. However, I think these things are important because our values are the things that are going to drive our life. So for example, if I said to you, Tiff, do you like your job? And if you said, no, I hate my job and I'd love to get out of it. And that would tell me that your values about certain things where you're at with your values. So if I said write down your top 12 values like family, love, money, success, adventure, safety, security, all those sort of things, I would be guessing that if you told me, oh, I'm too scared to leave my job, even though I hate it, I would be willing to guess that security, safety, and comfort are some of your top priorities, and that adventure, unknown, and discomfort are lower on your values list. And so, based off of what your values are, so if family is your number one value, that's something you're going to make time for. If money's number one and family's number six, you're going to make more time to make money than you do for your family, right? So basically, how our values are, if you're adventurous, I love adventure, then you're going to be that person who's willing to like just quit your job because you're willing to experience the unknown and discomfort to have adventure. So you're the person that would say, yeah, I'll quit my job because I hate it and take a chance and say, oh, is it an adventure? So values and parts and all of these things really blend well with each other. Truly. Our
Mhm.
emotional home, our values and parts, they all blend together real well.
I have a question for I've always wondered this, and this might sound like a ridiculous question. But it's my podcast, so I'm going to ask it. So, if we were able to learn about this stuff when we're younger, when we aren't able to set boundaries or learn more about parts and like, do you think that it would be easier as adults, or are we always gonna have this work that we need to do as adults and healing these parts? Does that
I
make
think
sense?
it does, and I've had the same thought before. I think 100%. I don't know. In fact, I just to validate you on this, I can't tell you how many times I've said to friends and even my sister, we talk deeply about our childhood dynamics with our family, where I've said, "Could you imagine what life would have been like if our parents actually, when we had an emotion, said, 'Hey, like, I want to talk to you about that. Why are you feeling this way?' Or when you did something wrong, instead of hitting us or punishing us in some way or yelling at us, said, 'Hey, I really want to understand why you did that. What was going through your mind? What were you feeling? Did you notice anything was happening in your body at that time? Did something just happen right before that? What was happening?' To really try and explore to help us understand so that we could learn to start doing that ourselves. And so, yeah, I'm curious all the time what life would have been like if I had parents that were different. I've also wondered if my parents did give me more, if it would have brought me to just enough of a comfortable life that I never would have searched any further.
Yeah.
That, that maybe I just would have went and been a lawyer or I don't know, some other career and just like been settled with that because I felt just stable enough inside to feel like I'm good. I speak when I need to. I express myself when I need to. I know how to give myself some basic self love and acceptance. And that's as far as I go. However, I feel like I was given extreme pain and trauma and negative beliefs about myself and brought me to the bottom of the pit. And at the bottom of the pit, I finally said, "Oh my God, I need to do something."
Mhm.
And that drove me to go further than most people who might be more comfortable in certain things in their own skin where they can just walk in the world and get by. And there's no other reason to go bigger. So I've kind of gone to both the yin and the yang of that.
That
Maybe if I got more, I wouldn't be who I am. I wouldn't have questioned as deeply.
that's true. I'm so glad that it
Yeah.
isn't just me, like, even on that example you gave where the student was made fun of, right? If that student went home and had a conversation with their parents or parent and did the work at that moment, if that would follow them through later in life and be a limiting belief for them. But then I also like the flip side of that you said is maybe she did have that conversation with a parent and she is like the lawyer and she's fine and doesn't need or feel like she needs to go on a healing journey. So I find it I've always wondered that, so it gives me comfort that I'm not the only one wondering and asking these questions. So
Well,
one of sorry, go on.
I was gonna say, well, how many people have you met in your life that maybe they said, "Oh, I really had a really good upbringing. My parents were really supportive and loving and XYZ. They did everything they could for me. Like I'm really happy with my raising. No traumas. They didn't hurt me, XYZ." And maybe you saw that person isn't super deeply introspective or going forward on some stronger path in some way. They're just sort of getting up, doing the 9 to 5 and, just doing their thing. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that,
Yeah.
right? But there are people that are soul surfers. And sometimes I think of it this way. You know what? If the best way I would describe this is I would say that I feel like, what's the word for this? So, for example, when there's a cancer in the body, right? There are always messenger cells who pick up on this first. And those
Mhm.
messenger cells say, "Hey, there's something going on here." And then all the cells come together and they go, "All right, we need to alert all the different systems so that we can take care of this foreign thing that's not good for us." Right.
Mhm.
And I believe people like you and I are messenger cells. We are the ones that see, up, there's a cancer here and we need to address this, both inside and collectively. So every part is needed.
Mhm.
Right? We need the people that go to work and they just decide to be the janitor who clean the toilets because we need clean toilets. Even the messenger cells need a clean toilet when they go into a public restroom, right? So, like, we need all those people, and not all the janitors need to be deeply introspective. And some people may have if you believe in things that we potentially did soul contracts or came here with certain agendas, if that's in your belief, I think that that's possible. Then maybe some guy just said, "Hey, why this guy helps do this? I'm just going to clean the toilets." And this guy said, "I'm going to make really good tacos. And I'm going to make sure people are happy with tacos because some days these guys are just going to need good tacos and they don't want to talk to the taco guy about something deep introspective. They just want a good taco and to forget the day that they're going through." So I think it's all sort of needed.
Absolutely. So, one of the pillars in my healing heart journey is honor your body. How did you first begin tuning into your body as a guide in your healing process? And what do you wish more people knew about emotional pain that is living in the body?
That is a great question. And I think my pain in my body was always the map, the roadmap. I just didn't accept that as a roadmap at the time. I just wanted that to go away. I felt hopeless. I didn't know how to work with it, and I just wanted it to stop. And it doesn't mean I still don't have those thoughts where I'm like, "Oh, come on, how many times is this issue I'm just gonna come up for me?" However, that was the gift. That was the thing that really gave me more power was actually learning how to be with pain in a way that was different, where it wasn't all consuming, where I actually had more choice and tools and acceptance and resources and all of that.
Mhm.
I don't know, did that answer that? Or because
Yeah.
you said a few things and I'm not sure if I touched all those.
No, absolutely. That's perfect. Yeah, I was like, where is your emotional pain? Where do people's emotional pain, where does it live usually in their body, and how, I guess, do you help them with your work? How do you help them release it?
Oh, that's a good question. So everybody holds it a bit differently, right?
Mhm.
And symbolically, I just see a lot where somebody comes with something in their body, and I can see how maybe that correlates to something going on in their life in a different way. And it may sound so simple, but there are times that someone comes and they say, "Oh, I have a lot of neck pain." That the first thing pops in my mind is like, what or who is a pain in the neck in your life? You know,
Literally. Yeah.
literally. And I get surprised at how much I see people divulge where then they and a lot of times people not all the time, some people are a bit more like blocked and as a protective measure are a bit more cut off from why and who and all of that.
Mhm.
But there are some that as soon as you say who or what is a pain in the butt, they just it hits them and they're just like, "Ah," and they go off and they just say all the things. And then by the end, they notice their neck's not hurting as much.
Mhm.
And so really what I do, one of the first things I do with people is that I want people to feel safe and heard because most people don't. And I feel like once you start feeling heard, that's when real healing starts because that's what creates safety. And I can't tell you how many people that I have said something that sometimes seems so simple to me to say because I'm so used to saying it. But if someone comes to me, I don't just go in fix mode. But they say, "Oh, I'm dealing with this." I'm not just like, "Oh, here's what you need to do. You need to do this breathing thing. You need to do this tapping thing. You need to do this feeling thing." One of the first things I do is just I validate their experience. Like, "That sounds really difficult. Tell me more. I wanna hear more about that. How does that affect your life? And what are some thoughts you have with that? And how does that affect your day to day?"
Yeah.
And when people feel heard, it changes things. Or if I just say, what do you need right now? How can I support you? I can't tell you how many people I've said, "What do you need right now? How can I support you?" That they've said, they just step back almost like silent. And they're just like, no one's ever asked me that before. And it shocks people.
It
And so when people
challenges them.
feel,
Yep.
yeah,
And the words, "Tell me more." A lot of people have not been given that opportunity either to tell more about their story or their journey, and it just gives them that freedom to actually tell you more, and then when you offer that up, like, "How can I support you?" That's, even they feel even more held and
yeah,
more
100%.
seen and more heard.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone's different. And so, I don't cookie cutter the way I work with people. I treat everybody as just a very unique person. And so if someone needs to come and just talk and cry and be heard in that moment, like that's what they need for that session. If that's the container they needed then, and then the next time they say, look, what I need right now is I need tangible things I can do to work with this, to shift, to change this, to make this new decision I need to make, then that's the work we're doing. And then there's other times that someone's really upset and I'm having to do somatic work. I'm having to help them track where something is in their body and even subtle things. One of the most difficult clients I can remember ever having was a woman who was very out of touch with what she thought and what she felt. So whenever I would ask her a question like, well, what do you think about that? What do you want to do? Where do you notice that in your body? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That's what I heard about almost every time. And so to reach her and her body language was always, she was extremely close, arms crossed, legs crossed, couldn't make eye contact for more than a few seconds, was looking around a lot. We'd be talking and she'd look around, and I had to really think and focus on, okay, how do I start breaking into giving her awareness? So I had to notice all the little cues where maybe I might ask a question, or maybe there's silence for a moment, and then her legs would be crossed, and then maybe she starts rattling her foot, right?
Mhm.
And then I'd be like, "Oh, okay." And I'd say, "What do you notice as your foot's rattling right there? Do you notice that?" And she'd be like, "Oh, I didn't notice that." I'm like, "What does that feel like?" And it came from just these little subtle things that I would do, or when she would cross her arms. How does that feel to cross your arms right now? Does that feel open? Does that feel closed? What do you notice? I don't know. Well, can we tune into it for a moment?
Mhm.
And maybe I'd say something that brought her to empowerment for a moment, that made her see, yeah, oh my God, yeah. And then her arms would uncross and she'd lean forward and I'd be like, what do you notice there? What do you notice as you came out of this and then came into this? And maybe it would be tough to notice. So then I'd have to say, okay, go back to this, lean back and go back to your arms crossed and your legs crossed again. And then it would be something really subtle where she'd be like, oh yeah, it's really faint, but I notice how that feels more guarded. And so it just came from these little somatic things in our awareness. And then we could get to where we started to help her describe sensations more. Because at first I'd say, well, when you're anxious, where do you feel that? And she'd say, I don't know. And then by the time we actually figured out that that lived often in her solar plexus in her stomach, then we got to where we could describe what the size of it was, what the shape of it was, what the color of it was, is it vibratory? Is it hot? Is it cold? You know, is it more visceral? Is it more on the surface? Like all kinds of specific details. And then before you know it, when she started getting awareness in her body, guess what started happening? I started asking questions and she would say, oh yeah, what I think is this. And I'd be like, wow, her I don't knows are dropping. So it
Mhm.
got to where 9 out of 10 questions were I don't know. And I got to where we were at 5 out of 10, then 4 out of 10, then 3 out of 10. And all that just by body awareness, just somatic awareness
Yep.
brought the subconscious mind and the conscious mind together to be able to have more awareness of the body and the mind together, this connection of conscious and unconscious, which is more rapport with yourself.
So, the one thing that I am learning about in my own training and that I am finding I am doing as well is I'm trusting my own intuition as a breathwork facilitator and somatic coach and not going in with an agenda with who I'm going to be working with and who I am working with, and really just taking the lead of the person that is sitting with me. And so you have said that you work as an intuitive guide. For someone who doesn't feel intuitive, how do we start building that muscle? And where does intuition live in the body?
Well, I think that intuition is always there. And the ways that we tune into that are looking at extremely subtle things, just like how I described with the woman that I worked with when she said, I don't know how I feel. I don't know what I think. And all it was is a tuning into how she did feel and how she did think. And it becomes with awareness. So sometimes I can still have a client come and in the moment, I have a thought where I might say to myself, I don't know what to say right now. I don't know what to do in this moment to say to this client. And then I might really tune into the energy because that's not my typical MO. Typically, I'm just like, I'm on fire when a client comes. I'm picking up energy, I'm seeing patterns, I'm seeing body language, I'm seeing cues, I'm seeing all these things. And then I'll start to see, I don't know what to do. And then I'll have to step back for a moment and say, wait, is that mine? That's not me. I'm not like this. Is it that I don't know, or am I really feeling this strong projection of their I don't know?
Thank you for saying that. Honestly, thank you for saying that because I've had that experience so many times in my training where I literally am lost. I don't even have one single word that I can say right now. And it scares me a little bit. And do I know what I'm doing? And then that self-doubt creeps in. And then same thing, like, is this mine? Is this mine? No, it's not mine. Okay. And then you tap into your own intuition and your own knowing again. And that's when it flows again. So thank you for recognizing that. And yeah, thank you. That's all.
No, you're
Keep going.
welcome. I'm glad that helped. You know, when a client comes and sees me, I never just see a client as I'm this person helping you because I always see some reflection or mirror about myself. That's how I can relate to people when they come and they say, this is going on in my life. I always see a mirror. Like I'm everything's just a mirror in my opinion.
Mm,
And so I'm seeing myself in them too. And they're part of my healing as well in their own way, where I get to see when they share something where I go, I relate to you because I may not do this like you do, but I do this same really energetic signature in this way in my life. And then it helps me see. So sometimes after a session, I'm even stirred up myself, right? No, so I need to process emotions or something deep came up for me. So that's where the intuition is. It's everything that's coming up for me. And even the I don't know, there could be many times where that's coming up where this isn't my I don't know, but it also could be my I don't know coming up too, but it's also a reflection of their I don't know.
mhm.
Does that make sense? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think all of these people that we are working with and helping are meant to be in our lives and in our journey to help us along our path as well. Just like you are sitting across from me in this episode right now. I believe every single person that I talk to is meant to help people that are listening, but it is also to help me on my journey. And so I think that's the same with the people that we work with in the breath work, somatic work, all of those modalities.
yeah, 100%. You know, I'm when I first started doing coaching and different therapies with people, I took way more responsibility for people than I needed to. Of if they come and they don't have, I'm sure you've worked with clients potentially who they came and everything you said and worked with and pointed out and they just jumped on it. Fireworks popping left and right. When they left, they were like, when you saw them the next time, they were like, oh man, I've been doing this. I changed that. I'm speaking my truth about that, XYZ. And you're just like, yeah, I love sessions like that.
Mhm.
And then you get those people that come and it's when they leave, you're like, did I do anything? Should I have returned their money almost where I'm like, I didn't do you anything today?
Mhm.
And I struggled with that in my practice for a really long time. And then I learned not to judge that. It doesn't mean it still never comes up, that I don't still ever have those feelings. But for the most part, that's shifted a lot for me where I stopped taking responsibility for how and what's going to happen for them in a session and just show up in the best way I can and stop taking responsibility because that's really about me, not about them. That, oh, if you got what I considered a good session for me and shifted something, then yay, I'm worthy. I'm good enough. And that's really about me. That's really about my own stuff that has nothing to do with them. So, so I work on letting those things go. And then I also often get surprised by people who will say something that blows my mind,
Mhm.
where I think, are they getting anywhere? Are they moving anything? And I'll assess and ask them, what's going on? What have you noticed since we worked together? What's shifting? What's not? What's still there? and I'll have somebody say something like, "You said something that changed my life." And they may not show it. Some people just don't show that. They're
Mm.
not like, "Oh my god, you blew my mind," right? Like, I'm more
They're like
animated and
they're
some
like,
people aren't.
"Oh my god, like, you blew my mind."
Yeah,
Like,
exactly,
"What?"
exactly. Yeah. They're like, "Wow, that was profoundly deep for me," right? Yeah, they're just like they're very monotone about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then they'll say something to you. It's like, "Oh, when you told me I had the power to choose what I wanted and create my life the way I want." I'm like, "That's the thing that blew your mind?
Mhm.
That's the thing that shifted for you?" Because as coaches, we're sometimes used to saying like really big, big truths, and we think like those are the ones that are gonna rock the foundation of people, and sometimes they're just like something simple. When you said, "Oh, I could just breathe in and out next time I'm stressed." I'm like, "What? That blew your
No
mind?"
joke, no joke. I have had that happen to me where, somebody was holding their breath, really holding their breath, and me reminding them to breathe was life altering for them. Wow. It's beautiful. It really is. So I have another question about transformation, and you've said that real love transforms us, not just romantically, but internally. What's something love revealed to you about yourself that you couldn't see before?
Mm. Say that one more time. I wanna really take that in.
What's something that love revealed to you about yourself that you couldn't see before?
The first thing that comes to my mind right now is about choice, and that's choosing myself when there's still strong stories that come up of how much I have to please others, make others happy before myself, that I can choose myself. And even though that's still something I struggle with, that's something that has been brought to my awareness. And so there are more ways that I choose myself now.
Beautiful. I love that. So, when you look at your life now with coaching and the healing and sharing your story, what's one thing that you never could have imagined being grateful for back then, but now feels like a sacred part of your journey?
I had this thought once, and it's never left me, and it came several years ago. That when I was in the worst place of my life and didn't want to live and had all these mental illness diagnoses and all these things going on, is that if I could see where I am right now in the future, right now in this very moment, if the past me could see me now and the universe came to past me and said, "Look, you can trade with this future version of you right now, but you'll never go any further. You'll never learn any more, and you'll never be any more healed or stronger than this version of me is right now in this day. Would you take that?" And I would have like cut off an arm and a leg to be me now.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there's a part of me that still remembers that thought I had and still remembers that who I am now is somebody that I would have like sold my soul to be. And I am now this person now. I have a lot of tools. It's not perfect. Sometimes it's ugly. Sometimes there's some ugly crying, and that's okay. I'm still in a stable and good place with overall a really great life, really good wife, really good family and friends. It's not perfect,
Mm.
but it's enough for me. It's enough to sustain me as I keep going day to day to the next level, whatever that may look like from day to day.
So, if people want to get in touch with you and work with you, you have given so many examples today of how you do that. This is where you can reach out. You can check out Donnie here, and I will have all of the links for how to get in touch with Donnie in the show notes. And so I end every episode, Donnie, asking my guests what they are grateful for today, because I truly believe even in the hard, there is always something beautiful. What are you grateful for today in this exact moment?
In this moment, I'm thankful for you, Tiff. This has actually been my favorite podcast I've been on yet. I love
Thank you.
you're welcome. I love your energy. I love your groundedness. You have a very soothing, comforting presence. And I really appreciate that a lot. And I appreciate your authenticity. I'm really grateful for that and that we met. This is really great. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That means the world to me to hear that. So
You're
thank
welcome.
you. You know what stayed with me most from this conversation? It's that healing doesn't have to look polished. It doesn't have to be Instagrammable or perfect or even understood right away. Sometimes it looks like lying on the floor, hand on your chest, just trying to breathe through the ache. Sometimes it's choosing not to run this time. Sometimes it's letting someone finally witness the part of you that you've tried to keep hidden. Donnie reminded us today that healing doesn't mean doing more, it means being with what's real. The fear, the grief, the rage, the longing, and that the body always remembers. It carries what we've never said out loud, but it also knows how to let go if we finally let it. So maybe you're here because you're tired of pretending that you're okay. Maybe something inside you is whispering, I want to feel again, and I want to come home to myself. And friends, that whisper, it matters. You don't have to figure it all out today, but if all you do is pause, soften, and let a single truth land in your heart, that is more than enough. Let it start here and let it start now. You are not too far gone, and you are already on your way. If Donnie's words spoke to your soul, please go and connect with him. I will have all of his information in the show notes. Whether you're curious about intuitive guidance, somatic healing, or just want to feel seen and heard, he is a beautiful place to start. And if today's episode felt like the exhale that you've been needing, I want to gently invite you deeper into this work. My Healing Heart Journey framework was born from the same ache and desire for peace that we talked about today. And there are so many ways that we can walk it together. You can download my free guided meditation, join a Healing Heart workshop, or keep tuning in to this podcast. And for the first time ever, I am hosting an in-person Healing Heart retreat on October 18th and 19th in beautiful Canmore, Alberta. It's going to be 2 full days of breath work, somatic practices, nourishing food, nature, soul rest, which we all need, and deep connection. It is for those who are ready to feel again and want to be witnessed and held through it all. Early bird tickets will go on sale on July 8th. Be sure to get on the wait list and follow me on Instagram at I am Tiff Carson or my website, tiffcarson.com, for all the details. You deserve this. You're not alone on this healing journey, and you never, ever were. Thank you again, Donnie, for sharing your story with us. And it has been a great honor to have you here. So thank you.
Same. Thank you so much for having me as a guest. I've really enjoyed this a lot. And I just want to tell you that I'm glad that you're here on this earth, that you were created, that you're here and you're doing the work you do. So
Thank you.
thank you just for being you.
Thank you. And you're making me cry.
You're welcome.
So thank you. Thanks for being here for this episode of Hard, Beautiful Journey. I hope today's episode inspired you to embrace your own vulnerabilities and recognize the strength within you. Remember, every story of resilience adds to the beauty of our shared journey. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a review. Your support helps me spread hope and healing to even more listeners. Until next time, keep shining your light and embracing the beauty in your journey. Bye-bye.